Hello, I'm Amy, and I am going to talk to you today about detoxing your thoughts and words. So, I co host a podcast called Brightly, and our goal is to help the listener step more brightly into themselves. So, I felt that this was a perfect topic, and I have a lot to say, which I won't be able to get to everything that I would want to say about detoxing thoughts and words, but just sort of a little appetizer, let's call it that. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that thoughts and words are magnetic. So anything you put out attracts the same thing back to it. And that's why when we're thinking of like unkind thoughts, or if we're crabby or mad about something, we tend to attract people and occurrences into our life that's the same thing. Like, you go to Target and all you run into are crabby people, right? I know it's happened. It happens to everyone. So I was thinking the other day, what if we actually had like thought bubbles? So cartoon characters, comic strips, comic books, graphic novels with their thoughts and words, right? Up above their head. So what if it was visible to everyone? And here's your thought bubble. And not only is it visible, but it's like tangible. So if you're thinking unkind thoughts about yourself or other people, if you're jealous of other people and you're thinking jealous thoughts, if you're thinking bad things about yourself, self-defeating thoughts, and this thought bubble is just like getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and you're weighted down by it and you can't move forward, and it's almost like Jacob Marley's ghost with all the chains, right? But with maybe a 50-pound weighted blanket on top of that, okay? And then the words out of your mouth are visible and like shards of glass when they're unkind and hurtful or hateful. Then think about if you were to think kind thoughts about yourself or the people around you, the people you love, the people you don't love, but you're still giving kind thoughts. Those lift you up. It's almost like having helium balloons above your head, right? Makes you stand straighter, and it encompasses everyone around you, and it helps them shine brighter too. So this is all well and good. However, sometimes we're like, well, that's great. What do I do? Like, especially if you've been, thinking in certain ways for a long time, it's hard to just go, well, I'm not going to be that way anymore. Let me just change. So here's one of the key things is before you can detox, you have to know what the toxic is, right? You have to actually be aware that you're having toxic thoughts, and you also have to address them. So something to consider is that you might have to go into the darkness a little bit deeper, right? Some people call this shadow work, but by stepping into your shadow and addressing recurring patterns, how you always maybe act a certain way when something happens or react a certain way, or how something can trigger you consistently. Shadow work can be hard. I'm not going to kid you about that. But we do have to face why we're having these kinds of thoughts and why we say these kinds of words. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to just be able to do this, but you can start through silence, decluttering your environment so your thoughts can be heard. You can do this by allowing maybe some inner child oil, just putting a drop on your hands, rubbing your hands together, breathing deep, allowing yourself to sit in the discomfort of memories and thoughts, and by journaling. So something literally can happen. It's like an alchemical reaction when you take pen to paper and you write out thoughts and you ask yourself the tough questions. And then once you face some of that darkness, then you can begin to make the small changes. So my co-host calls it a brighten up, and I love that. Shameless plugs here for my podcast. But some changes that you can make with intention, right? The media you consume. So if you're only watching news all day long, that why do you want that to live rent-free in your head? I'm not saying to not be informed, but I'm saying, why do you want all this constant conflict and bad things that have happened all day long in your head? But also just like the television, like the shows that you watch, the movies that you watch, the radio you listen to, the books you read. Just consider what that is that you're consuming. Also consider the amount of time you're consuming versus putting out into the world versus creating. Affirmations. I love affirmations, and I actually wrote an affirmation for you for this topic. It feels good to think good thoughts about myself and others, and to say kind things about myself and others. Very simple affirmation. Say that 5 times a day, every day. And I say it feels good too, because if we're not doing those things yet, to just say, I think kind thoughts about people, your brain is going to be like, no, you don't. But it feels good too, because you know it does feel good too. The people you surround yourself with, that's something to consider. Every day I start with a gratitude journal. I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. Some things you can consider is doing like a vision statement or a mission statement for your life, and then sort of a life rules page. What are your values? And are your words and thoughts upholding those values? It's very interesting. We all think we know what our values are, but have you ever actually written them down and looked at them and thought about them? It's a pretty interesting exercise. Stephen Covey says, and many people have many different quotes about this same thing, but I'm going to read Stephen Covey's. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. So I think that shows you just how important our thoughts and words are. We think that they're just nothing. Like we could just I said this thing and now I'm done with it, but that thing has actually gone out. My mom used to end her talks. She was a public speaker, and she used to end them with this quote from the Bible, Isaiah 55, verse 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I propose and prosper in the thing I sent it. So what are you sending out to prosper? Is it something good, or is it something bad? And I'm going to leave you with that. Thanks, everyone.